Hello, welcome to Forest Focus, as Nottingham Forest are strongly linked with Dan Ndoye, the Bologna forward, who features strongly in our list of possible Anthony Elanga replacements on the recent podcast we did with Dan and Pete. So if you want to check out what two football hipsters who watch too much YouTube think, check out that episode. If you want to hear what an actual expert thinks about Dan Ndoye, stay with us the next 10 or 15 minutes as we're joined once again by TNT Sports Serie A commentator Adam Summerton. Adam, good evening. How are you today?
I'm really good, Matt. Good to speak to you. You okay?
Yes, good. Really good. Really good of you to do this on a Friday
Pleasure.
night. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to hearing what you think about Dan Ndoye. You've given him the seal of approval on Twitter and you're quite excited about him. Tell us a bit about the player and why you rate him so highly, if you would.
Yeah, I have to say I'm really excited at the prospects of him coming to the Premier League and coming to Forest as well. He's a player. I don't know if you remember, but I think you asked me some months ago players from Serie A who I would be looking at if I were Forest, realistic potential transfer targets. And he was one of those that I mentioned because I think that he's really flourished at Bologna, particularly in the first season, first full season under Thiago Motta. You saw a player developing really well. He really seemed to react well to Thiago Motta's coaching, as did many of the Bologna players, it should be said. And then he, of course, you'll remember he went to the Euro with Switzerland and got rave reviews. In fact, so much so that directly after the tournament, and I suppose he would say this, but his agent said half of Europe wanted him after Euro 2024. So he certainly made an impression there. But if you go back to then and his club form, whilst I admired him, I think one of the things that maybe I was slightly held back in my judgment of him was that I wanted to see more end product from him because I could see the ability was there, but I just didn't think he always delivered that end product. And I think certainly last season under a new manager after Motta went to Juventus under Italiano, who took over, I really feel that he kicked on again. And he said that the start of play under Italiano meant that he got more chances to score than perhaps he did under Thiago Motta. So what he added last season was certainly end product to what was already clearly an impressive player at a good age, 23, 24, I think he is. To describe him as a player for you, for those who've not seen him, I would say that he's pretty strong. He's difficult to knock off the ball. He's about 6 foot tall. He's quick. He can play on either flank. He can kick with either foot, finish with either foot. Better with his right foot, but can play with either foot. There's a directness to him as well. But he just carries the ball so well. That's the one thing that I always think about him whenever I come away from watching him play for Bologna. It's how well that he carries the ball. And some people might have seen him, Matt, when he played against Liverpool at Anfield for Bologna in the Champions League last season. I was particularly interested. I was there that night, and I was particularly interested to see how he did against Premier League opposition. And for me, he was probably Bologna's best player that night. He really looked to create a lot, and he was a real threat. And I thought then, if he ever does move to England, that performance will have done him no harm at all, actually, at Anfield. They lost the game, but I thought he played well.
Just in terms of where Forest are at with this, Florian Plettenberg has said, and this is basically the same as a lot of sources in Italy have said, Forest are pushing to sign Dan Ndoye. They've reached a verbal agreement. He can sign a contract till 2030. So he will take him up to being 29, as Adam says. They're now preparing an opening bid, and also Napoli are in the running, which is bad news because they're a big club in Italy. But it's exciting anyway because we've had a pretty miserable summer so far. You mentioned his versatility there. I guess that's a big strength that Forest will be looking at. Does he have a best position, or can he just play across the front line, would you say?
Yeah, I kind of like him on both sides of the pitch, actually. And another thing I would say too is that he's somebody that I think if was really required of him, I believe he's got the skill set to play centrally as well. He scored one of the best goals in Serie A last season, actually, from a central position about 6 yards out. If you haven't seen it, it's well worth looking up. It was against the team who would go on and win the title, Napoli. It was like a backheel type flick as well with his weaker foot. It was a fantastic goal. Definitely go and look it up on YouTube. And of course, he scored the decisive goal in the Coppa Italia final as well, again from a central position. where he sort of worked his way across the box looking for some room to get a shot in and scored that with his right foot. One of the biggest goals in Bologna's modern history. They hadn't won a trophy since 1974, I think it was. So over 50 years ago, 51 years ago. So it was a huge goal that he scored to win, and he was the player of the match as well in the final two. So I always look to that. Does a player deliver on the biggest stage? A big game player, as perhaps we like to call it, and he certainly delivered that day. So yeah, I mean, there's so much to be excited about this player. And the other thing as well is, whilst I think that he could also add to his positions in that, not just a wide player, but I could see him playing central. I just think that he's nowhere near his peak yet either. I do think there's more room for growth there. Before I came on to speak to you, I was trying to think, because I always try and like to give both sides of the story as well. One slight concern for me would be the stylistically of Forest and the team that he would be coming from in Bologna, because very different, because Bologna were averaging 58.5% possession last season, which was the second highest in Serie A, only behind Inter, who finished runners-up in the league. So it would be clearly a very different style of play in terms of Forest will look to soak up pressure, not have too much of the ball, and then look to hit on the counter. He has the skill set to be able to adapt to that. He's quick, he's direct, he's strong, he's hard to get off the ball, he's good with both feet. So I don't doubt that he could adapt, but it's just worth pointing out, maybe as a note of caution, that the system that he was used to playing in at Bologna under Italiano was very possession-based. And it was too under Thiago Motta as well the previous season. The other thing as well to say about Bologna, and one of the things that he talked about when he said how much he enjoyed playing for Bologna under Italiano last season, was the high press that they looked to put on, really looked to put pressure on teams in the opposition's final third. So again, that's something you'll see less common with Forest, where they look to drop off with the way that they look to play the game. So they're little sort of tactical notes of caution, but I don't see why a player of his ability, and he's a Swiss international. He's been in Serie A for the last 2 years. He was playing in Switzerland before that. He's got quite a bit of experience behind him. So yeah, I just underline again, I would be really excited to see this player who you've just quite rightly said has been attracting the attention of Napoli, the champions, who've just signed Noah Lang, which could mean that there's not as much space there for him perhaps now. They had Politano on the right last season. So that could be good news for Forest. It's not just them who he's been linked with, though. Several of the Italian teams, Juventus were sort of briefly linked with him. I've seen him linked with Liverpool in the past as well. I mean, I don't know how serious that link was too, but certainly he is a player who would be, I think, a really good asset to a lot of good teams.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to do the adapting for him and change the way we play a little bit and try and be less one. Not, I don't think we're entirely one dimensional. I think it's an unfair tag, but I wonder if we'll be slightly different next season. So it's interesting you say that. I remember you were on here a few weeks ago discussing two players who are irrelevant now in Weah and Bangula. You weren't quite as excited as them relative to Milenkovic. So I was going to ask you, on the Milenkovic scale of Adam Summerton excitement, where are we pitching Dan Ndoye? Is he a par with Milenkovic or a rung below, would you say?
Well, in terms of excitement, I would say it's right up there. In terms of my surety as to whether he would be a success, I would say not as high. Milenkovic, I just looked at how he plays the game and what Forest needed. And I just thought, if I'm a scout for Forest, I'm going tick, 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 tick. And I think in respect of Ndoye, he does tick boxes. But whilst I will be confident that he will do well in the Premier League, as I say, I wouldn't claim to have the same surety that I did with Milenkovic. But I do think that this is a player that if he did arrive in the Premier League at Forest, it would be quite a coup, actually, when you consider some of the other clubs that have been linked with him. I mean, Napoli, for instance, are playing in the Champions League next season, and the Italian champions, and they're really looking to flex their muscles in the transfer market this summer. Conte seems determined to retain the title. So it's really exciting times in Naples. So, I know another player that I recommended was Ravella, and he would excite me too. I don't think they've been linked with him, but he was certainly up there. If I looked at the players who I thought Forest could realistically target in Italy, he would be right up there as to one of the players that I would be looking to recommend to Forest that they could target. So to see them so strongly linked with him is great, because I think he would work out at Forest. It would be really exciting signing.
For people listening, I'm not seeing a fee reported. For what it's worth, his transfer market value is 35 million euros. Adam might correct that. I don't know when I ask him this other question. Last question I'm going to ask you about him. From what you were saying and from what Pete and Dan were saying in the podcast, he's sort of similar to Elanga in some ways, but without the explosive pace that's impossible to replace from by the sound of it. Do you see kind of Elanga traits in his game or not?
Well, he may not be quite as quick as Elanga, who's got to be one of the quickest in the Premier League, but he is quick. Worth underlining about him, one of the real strengths I think of him is he's very strong. I mean, you don't look at him and think, oh, he's like an Adama Traore. He's not really muscle bound and stocky, but he is about 6 foot. And I just always notice with him, he wins quite a lot of free kicks, and he's also really difficult to get off the ball, particularly when he's running with it. I would say that's maybe his biggest strength for me as a player, the way that he carries the ball. And obviously that's the strength of Elanga's as well, particularly with Forest often looking to counter. So that for me is one big tick for him as to where he could fit well with Nottingham Forest. Another thing, if you're going to sort of bring Elanga into the conversation, that's worth mentioning is that I always think that Elanga is quite good with that ability to arrive in the box as well. He's not all just about the pace and playing wide. And that's something that's worth mentioning about Ndoye, is that he can finish off chances. I mean, he got 8 goals last season, which might not sound like a lot, but it was from a fairly low base the previous season, and he vastly improved on that last season, got more chances in the way that Italiano played. And I've no doubt that he could go much more than that again. I feel there's more room for growth in that respect too. So he's somebody who, if you look back at if you just go on YouTube and just look at some of the goals that he scored last season, you'll probably get an idea of what I'm talking about. That sort of knack of sensing when an opportunity might come, particularly if the ball is on the opposite side to which he's playing. And as I say, he's also got that ability to cut inside on his right foot if he's playing on the left. And being 2-footed, it means that he's less predictable sometimes too, because I always like it when a winger is comfortable on both sides and with both feet. It makes them less predictable. It's harder to guess, isn't it? They can go on the inside and they can go on the outside. So, a skillful player, can be a direct player, room for growth, can be very direct, quick, strong on the ball, carries the ball really well. Yeah, good player. I like him a lot.
Excellent. I think I've got his stats here from last season just before we wrap up. I'll just put them in. Oh, yeah, 8 goals, 4 assists last season. He played 8 games in the Champions League, I checked. So 12 goal returns feels like a good return for me, especially from what Adam was saying. If Bologna were a fairly defensively resolute team, and that sounds all very promising to me, certainly, I would say. Just before we wrap up, a quick word of thanks to Trent Navigation. Tomorrow's the Lions tour. You can watch it at the Nav. I think kickoff's actually at 11, but check that out. But I think it's certainly over from 10, so you can get your breakfast. We'll be back either tomorrow with a post-match show, or definitely on Monday at 1 o'clock with Adam's TNT colleague Darren Fletcher, where we'll discuss this and more, and Danilo going to Botafogo for around 20 million, and Matt Sells has signed a new and improved deal until 2027. Same length of contract, but a reward for his good form. Any strong opinions on Danilo before we go? Did you see enough of him or not?
A little bit sad about Danilo, because I'd watched him before he came to Forest playing in it was in the Club World Cup final, if memory serves me right, when he played against Chelsea, I believe. I'm digging that out of my boots, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. And I looked at him and I just thought, yeah, because you see players in the Brazilian league, and sometimes you think, would they kick on in one of the European leagues? And I felt that he would be one that would. But it's just been a shame that he obviously had that bad injury, didn't he? And I just don't think we ever saw the best of him. Maybe glimpses of what he could do. But just a shame that it's not really worked out for him. Maybe he'll go back to South America and end up perhaps coming back to Europe again one day. I mean, he's young enough, isn't he? But I think just a feeling that didn't reach his potential, perhaps, is the way to put it, during his time in England.
Yeah, I think so. My take on him was, when I was thinking about this, and I'll raise this on Monday, was we just didn't see the best of him, partly because of the injury. We played him in lots of positions. He's a bit like Elliot Anderson. He can play him in any position, but Elliot Anderson, he knows he's good in every position, and Danilo was a bit too. The ceiling was very high, but the floor was too low. There just wasn't quite enough consistency. but I really liked him, and I think there's a good player in there. So, like I say, we shall pick this up on Monday with Fletch and the lads, if not after the Monaco game tomorrow, if we do a post-match show. If you've enjoyed this, and just give us a like as appreciation for Adam, because he offered to do this, which is fantastic of him. Hit like, hit subscribe, do consider membership or Patreon, or just a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. Adam, your kitchen's looking very nice, by the way, I must say.
I'm just in the middle of tidying it, actually. You gave me a break for me.
Well, you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. Like
Thanks,
I say,
mate.
thank you to Adam. It's really good of him to do this. He's a great friend to the podcast, so we really appreciate his company. Next time we link with an Italian player, I'm sure I'll be capping hands at him again, or Serie A player. But it's been good to have his insight. Appreciate that. Have a good evening, everyone. And if we don't see you tomorrow, and then we might see you on Monday, but if not, we shall see you soon.